Hello guys, Prathik this side. So today we'll be solving a LeetCode problem, question number 70, climbing stairs. So let's first understand this problem. We are climbing a staircase. It takes n steps to reach the top. Each time we can either climb one or two steps. In how many distinct ways we can climb to the top? So in this question, we have to reach the top of the staircase and it takes n steps to reach that staircase. And we can either take one step or two steps at a time. So let's understand this problem more with an example here. Here our n is equal to 2 and we have our output is 2 because there are two possible outcomes for this. The first is we take one steps and second is we take two step here. And for our second example here n is equal to 3, our output is 3 because there are possible ways we can climb to the top. First our is 1 steps, second is our 1 step and a 2 step, and third is our 2 step and a 1 step. So this is a basic DP problem here. And why I'm saying DP, because in DP problem there are many sub problems and we have to reuse our answers. So that's why it is a DP problem, because if you look closely here, and we can reach the nth step from our last step, which is will be n minus 1 or n minus 2. And what I mean by that is, let's take an example to understand it more. Since let's assume our n is 5 here, so we can reach our 5 from our last step, which can be fourth step or a third step. So we can safe to say that n minus 1 would be our fourth step, that is our fourth step, which will be our last step to reach our n, and our n minus 3, n minus 2 would be our last step to reach from our second to reach the fifth nth step, because we can take one or two steps. So if we look closely, this format is also Fibonacci series here, and we are going to use our Fibonacci series to solve this problem. Now, why we are not using our brute force approach is because in this problem we can also use recursion and recurse through our problem until we find the answer. But in this, our time complexity would go of O2 to the power n, and it is not a good time complexity for this problem, because in recursion the time complexity would grow exponentially to our given input, and since our constraints go up to 45, it might not be that good of a time complexity. So we'll start with our Fibonacci approach here. So we'll start by writing our if condition here, because if n is less than or smaller than 2, we'll just return n, because in here we can see that our output for n is 2 and for n is equal to 1, there's only one output. And after this we'll start writing our code for Fibonacci series here. So this will be our 2 in previous one, and in previous 2 would be our 1. Now what these 2's are, this will be for our n minus 2 ways and this will be for our n minus 1 ways. And after this we'll start with our for loop here, and we will iterate through our for loop from I is equal to 3 to I is equal to n, and we are going to just increase our I from this. And after this we'll just make our int current, which will store our core logic here, which will be our n minus 1 plus n minus 2 to get the n. So here I will write my previous one plus previous 2, and after this I will just change my values of previous 1, previous 2 to extend my window for our next iteration here. So I will just write previous 2 is equal to previous 1, and after this I will write previous 1 is equal to current, and after this we will just return our previous one, because our answer would be stored in previous one instead of current, because current will be changing again and again. And as we can see that our test cases are passing, so let's add one of our own test case here, 34, and see if it is passing or not for this code 2. And as we can see, it is passing for our code. So let's just submit our code and see if it is passing for all the test cases. And for this approach, our time complexity is ON since we are iterating once, and our space complexity is ON since we haven't used any data type here. And if we used a brute force approach, our time complexity would jump from ON to O to 2 to the power N, which will be a drastic approach and not as good as this approach. So that's it for my guys' side. Thank you guys for watching.